The 18th of April, 1930. At exactly 8:45 inches the evening, millions of people across Britain turned on their radios expecting the usual headlines. Political tension, financial panic, murders, war warnings, something. Instead, the announcer calmly said, "There is no news." Then the BBC played piano music. That was the entire broadcast. No explanation, no urgency, just silence drifting through British homes while Europe moved quietly toward catastrophe. And nearly a century later, that single sentence still feels impossible, because today, the world never shuts up. Every second, somewhere on Earth, a city burns, a government collapses, a celebrity scandal erupts, a market crashes, or a war begins. Information floods every screen endlessly. News has become permanent weather. So how did humanity once experience a day with nothing to report? To understand why this happened, you have to step into a completely different world. The year was 1930. Radio was still new enough to feel magical. Families gathered around large wooden receivers in complete silence, like they were sitting around a fireplace. The BBC was not entertainment yet. It was authority, calm, formal, almost sacred. When the BBC spoke, Britain listened. And unlike modern media, news moved slowly, carefully. Stories arrived through telegraph wires, newspaper agencies, and government reports. Editors decided what deserved national attention and what did not. That distinction matters, because April 18th was not actually empty. People still died that day, crime still happened, arguments still unfolded in Parliament. Somewhere in the world, violence continued as usual. But according to BBC editors, nothing significant enough had happened to justify a full national bulletin. So the newsroom made an extraordinary decision. No news tonight, just piano music. And strangely, audiences accepted it. No outrage, no panic, no conspiracy theories flooding the country overnight, just a brief moment of collective quiet. But history makes this story feel far stranger than it originally was, because 1930 was not peaceful at all. In fact, the world was already beginning to crack apart beneath the surface. Just months earlier, the Wall Street crash had shattered global markets. The Great Depression was spreading silently across continents. Businesses collapsed, unemployment surged, entire families slipped into poverty almost overnight. And in Europe, something darker was growing. Political extremism was beginning to infect fragile democracies. Fascist movements gained momentum in Germany and Italy. Public anger intensified. Economic desperation transformed ordinary citizens into radicals. Adolf Hitler was still years away from total power, but the machine that would eventually consume Europe was already moving. That is what makes the BBC broadcast feel eerie in hindsight. Because while Britain listened to soft piano music, history was loading a weapon in the background, and nobody could hear it yet. There's something deeply unsettling about calm moments before disasters. People imagine history as loud, explosive, obvious. But most catastrophes begin quietly. Financial collapses start with ordinary mornings. Wars begin with paperwork and speeches. Democracies disappear through routine decisions made behind closed doors. Civilizations rarely notice a danger while they are living inside it. And maybe that is why this story survived. Not because it was dramatic, but because it captured the final years before the modern world became permanently noisy. Today, silence itself feels suspicious. If every news channel suddenly stopped broadcasting, people would assume something catastrophic had happened. We are conditioned to expect endless stimulation, endless alerts, endless outrage. Modern media does not merely report events anymore. It competes for human attention. Fear keeps people watching. Anger spreads faster than truth. Panic travels instantly across algorithms designed to reward emotional reactions. Every headline fights for survival in an economy built on urgency. But in 1930, information still had limits. And for one strange evening, those limits created something impossible by modern standards. A gap, an empty space in the noise. And perhaps the most fascinating part of the story is that the BBC announcement was not meant to become historic at all. It was routine, temporary, forgettable. The announcer likely delivered the line without emotion, then moved on with the evening. The piano music replaced what editors believed would have been dead air. But decades later, the sentence transformed into a kind of cultural ghost. There is no news. Not because it was literally true, but because modern audiences cannot imagine hearing it, the phrase now sounds almost fictional, like dialogue from an alternate universe where humanity had not yet become addicted to constant information. And maybe that is what people are really reacting to when they hear this story. Not nostalgia for old technology, but nostalgia for psychological silence. For a moment before the world became permanently connected to its own anxiety. Because today, bad news never ends. Wars stream live into bedrooms. Financial panic updates by the second. Every disaster becomes content before the smoke even clears. The modern world has erased the natural pauses that once existed between events. But on the 18th of April 1930, there was still enough quiet left in civilization for the BBC to tell an entire nation, nothing important happened today. And the strangest part is, that sentence now feels more unsettling than any headline ever could.